And let us pray. Holy One, creator of heaven and earth, mother and father of all humanity, you have blessed us to serve as co-creators of our shared world with you. A shared world where all are equal and all are beloved, as all are in your eyes and in your presence. We pray that you would bless this gathering today with open and listening hearts and with a passion for your justice and love brought to fruition in our world. We ask all this trusting in your most holy name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much, Reverend Stacy. Just a couple of housekeeping announcements. We will, for those who will be praying the Islamic prayers, we're going to be breaking at 4:15, and that would be an opportunity to perform the afternoon prayers, the Asr prayers. And today the sunset Maghrib prayer is at 5:05, at least that's in Naperville, that's where I'm from. And if you, we'll be right in the middle of a small group discussion, so we can work out how to, how you may want to work out how you want to pray during that time. At this point, I'd like to invite everyone into small groups. And you are going to join a small group where you will be asked to give your name, institution, and affiliation, and respond to this question. From the reading, ideally, if political equality existed, citizens, or where political equality exists, citizens become co-creators of their shared world. So the prompt is this: share a time during the last year that you witnessed or were a part of people co-creating their shared world. We will reconvene in approximately 20 minutes to reflect on what we discussed.
Okay, thank you, Shakil. I hope you all enjoyed your small group discussion. We are now going to continue on in our agenda to, I'm going to hand things over to Deanne Bosey to give us our frame and purpose for today. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So as said, good afternoon. My name is Diane Bosey, and I'm a member of Good Shepherd Lutheran Church in Oak Park and United Power for Action and Justice. So I want to take you back to September 2015, and I was participating in a gathering of 100 leaders from across Metro IAF in Baltimore, Maryland, to discuss ways to leverage our work together to move the campaigns and the organizations forward. And there were a number of us there who had been actively working on the Do Not Stand Idly By campaign for several years. And as many of you know, it was a Metro IAF national campaign. And we knew the campaign was lagging. Our primary focus had been pressing the Obama administration to work with us. And even after lots of positive meetings with White House staff, we were getting ignored and being pushed aside. So while we knew the campaign was in a difficult place, we didn't know that we were so dead in the water that we weren't even on the agenda at this gathering, not even on the agenda. So in organizing fashion, we caucused and decided to run an action and announced that if any affiliate members wanted to discuss next steps for the campaign, to meet in the lobby. 40 people showed up, 40 people who wanted to move forward. And it was in that moment together that we recognized that we were in a now or never moment, as President Obama's last year was in office, was coming up. And so we organized together, and then we pressed hard over the next couple of months with powerful local actions in Chicago. Many of you might have been at that one, in New York and in DC. And by January, President Obama included what we wanted in one of his executive orders on reducing gun violence, and we were back in action. And we still are as the Gun Safety Consortium today. So now let's jump back to today in 2022, and we're gathered together across Metro Illinois to talk about moving forward. This happens to be the 25-year anniversary of United Power's founding. And shortly following United Power, DuPage and Lake County were founded, and then Fox River Valley in King County. And the purpose in the beginning for all of us is the same as it is today: to organize power for impact, to organize with each other, face to face or Zoom to Zoom, person to person through our religious and civic institutions. Our work together is how we have and can continue to be co-creators in our shared world. And even in the midst of a global pandemic, a long and overdue racial reckoning, and ongoing uncertainty, together we've made progress. We've organized people power in Cook County that's leveraged $27.2 million in public and private funding towards our goal of 2,000 affordable homes on the south and west side. And by building at scale, we can create home equity and a path to the middle class for working people. And we're doing this throughout the region, in Waukegan, Fox River Valley, and potentially Glen Ellen. So last week, we sent, as Metro IAF Illinois, we resent our proposal to the governor for a large-scale action, 2,500 people on July 17th. So today, we have to decide, do we stick with the power we have now or wield it in a way to move forward? And what power do we have? So first, we have a governor's election this year with a governor that, despite our meeting with him twice, has largely not engaged with us. And for the first time in our history, United Power has a relationship with the mayor of Chicago. There are private sector leaders that have supported our housing campaigns throughout the region, but have largely gone untapped and unengaged. And we've all been cultivating relationships with police chiefs, mayors, hospital presidents. How might we engage and leverage those people to do more with us? How might we work together to further co-create our shared world? To answer these questions, here's how we'll spend our time today. First, we'll start with rooting ourselves in our values and our relationships with each other, recognizing and listening to one another as we come together from our varied interests and our values, because that's the root of organizing for the long haul. Secondly, we'll focus on our power. So Stefan Whitley, an organizer with Wake County United in North Carolina, has graciously agreed to join us, and he's going to share some of his reflections on power. And then finally, we'll talk about strategy for how we might leverage our collective power in the year ahead so that we can have a breakthrough action like I shared earlier. And now, Imam Asfar is going to lead a reflection for us about power. Thank you.
In the name of God, the most gracious, the most merciful. COVID has changed many aspects of our lives. It has even changed the definition of a retreat. This is the first time where I'm in my home office, but I'm also on a retreat. That being said, God willing, we can still accomplish our goals of renewing our current relationships and resetting our focus and being cognizant of how we use our time. I've been asked to share my reflections on the two articles that was sent. So I'll start off with the article that is titled How Ivy League Elites Turned Against Democracy, how some of the best educated people in the country who went to Harvard, Princeton, these Ivy League schools, how they were the ones that initiated and oversaw the destruction of their institutions. One thing that came to my mind after reading this article was, just because a person went to an Ivy League school, does that mean that we can completely trust them? Does that mean that we should work towards giving them all this power. There's a supplication that Muslims are encouraged to make whenever elections come up. It goes as follows: Allahumma, O Almighty God, la tusallit alayna man la yakhafuka. Don't put someone in power who is not conscious of you, O Almighty God. So it kind of reminded me of the quote on page 6. Says that on the bottom, no country can survive when the leaders of its institutions actively work towards the destructions of those institutions. And then it also mentions for some leaders, this unfortunately is what they bring to the table. This is their expertise, the capacity to convince elite to destroy other people's reputations, institutions, and careers. There's an Arabic proverb that states, whoever man hafara hufratan li akhi, whoever digs a hole for their brother, they will be the ones that fall into it. And it reminded me of the of what happened during the Capitol riot. Also on page 6, it states that at the bottom of the current collapse of the American political order is a very basic, very widespread distrust of all kinds of institutions. And that distrust is based on ordinary Americans' distrust of the hubristic people who run those institutions. Can you blame them? The same people who told Americans that Saddam Hussein possessed weapons of mass destruction now telling them to get vaccinated. Mistrust is inevitable. So even when the people in power are telling people to do something good, people won't listen. Why? Because there is a huge mistrust. And then that last sentence, last two sentences was quite chilling for me. The enemies of the United States have nowhere near as much capacity to damage its interest as do its most educated and most celebrated citizens. Nobody needs to sell Americans rope, they are braiding it themselves. Meaning, we don't need external forces to divide us. We are already so weak and divided that we are damaging ourselves without the help of any external force. And this is what happens when we leave the decision making to the elite who don't have character, with those people who are not talking and relating with people on the ground. Then there will be a lack of trust. I'd like to transition now to the second reading, our declaration, a reading of the Declaration of Independence in defense of equality. And the author talks a lot about freedom and equality, and it's why it's important to know the sources of power. But also on the last page, 266, of course, we should know the sources of power. We should want to meet with the people of power, but also the why of power. Why do we want power? Is it to benefit just us, or is it to benefit everyone? As Daniel Allen writes on page 266, are they honest? Do they act with pure hearts? Or do they have mixed intentions? Are their pretty arguments a cover for a dastardly purpose? How cunning are they? Right? The Prophet Muhammad, upon him be peace, he said, "Ad-din wa an-nasiha." The religion is sincerity. So, and then the author continues to write, only the supreme judge, the judge of people's consciousness, knows the answer. So power alone is not enough. Power plus character will help us take our values and so that we can do our part in making the world a better place. And this is why she also mentions that how do we assess their um, their character? The declaration, she says, the declaration itself must therefore end with action. So do they have sincere actions? And the work of Illinois Metro IAF is very important because, as we see in this Zoom call, there's very different people together, but we are relating and acting on our shared values. I have a goal where I'm trying to improve the quality of the Lake County residents, and you guys have a similar goal where you're trying to improve the life of the residents in your county. For example, helping people with mental illnesses. According to the Prison Policy Initiative, at least 37% of people who go to jail, who go to prison, have been diagnosed with a mental illness. And right now, all the programs are shut down at the jail. But before that, I used to go to the jail once a month. And as the coordinator was giving me a tour, the Lake County Jail coordinator, he himself said that our guards are not equipped to deal with the inmates and people who have severe mental illnesses, and the situation for the inmates is getting worse when they go to to jail, and when they leave jail, they are most likely going to leave in a emotional and spiritual state that is worse when they came in. That is definitely not okay. That's not okay. um, if we think that it doesn't affect us, eventually it will. So this shows that people who have this power, they also have a huge responsibility. There's a heaviness to it. And what will make it easier for all of us is if we root ourselves in deeper relationship with one another and we come together as one entity so that people of character have the power they need. As Reverend Stacy Walker mentioned in her supplication, in the opening supplication, so that our values and our goals are achieved for the betterment of our country. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Imam Asfaruddin from the Islamic Foundation North. I'd like to invite Nick Brunick of the Ascension Catholic.
Thank you very much. That wonderful reflection and the readings for me really reminded me that in our faith traditions, across all of our faith traditions, and also in our small d democratic traditions, we are called to be equal co-creators. In all of our faith traditions, we are equal in the eyes of God. We are all part of God's human family, equally loved by God. And as part of that equality in God's family, we are invited to be part of God's creation story, which is ongoing. And in our small d democratic traditions, as we were reminded in the reading that we read, in the Declaration of Independence, and then in countless founding documents that have followed, we are established as equal citizens who are intended to come together and take part in keeping our republic, as Benjamin Franklin so famously said, and in perfecting our union, which, as we all know, remains unperfected. But we are invited to take part in the democracy together, to be co-creators. And so when I thought about our day today, and I thought about reflecting on what we could accomplish, one thing that came to mind for me is something that relates to our Reclaiming Communities work that we've been working together on through United Power, supported by DuPage United, Lake County United, and Fox River Valley Initiative. And I think, as you all know, the Reclaiming Communities campaign aims to build, rehab 1,000 homes on the south side and 1,000 homes on the west side, and to rebuild communities. And one of the things that we worked on this past year was, as part of that effort, the resurrection of the Lazarus Apartments, which were 2 vacant buildings in the Lawndale community. And thanks to the organizing work that was done together, Lawndale Christian Development Corporation was able to secure the resources to start renewing the Lazarus Apartments into 33 affordable homes for families and 15 affordable homes for folks returning to the community from incarceration. And so today, because we had that victory this past year, I took a look at the Gospel of John and the story of the raising of Lazarus. And 2 things stuck out to me. One was the phrase, the very famous phrase from that biblical story, Jesus wept. Jesus wept. And that stuck out to me because it reminded me that in all of our faith traditions, we have a God who weeps with us, who mourns with us, and who is concerned not only for the personal losses in our life, but also for the injustices that we face in society. God mourns at the fact that we have vacant lots and vacant homes. He mourns at the gun violence and the lost lives. He mourns at the folks with mental illness who end up being incarcerated and the lives that are needlessly lost in our society. And he calls us to act to address those issues. The second phrase that stuck out to me in the reading of the raising of Lazarus, and fortunately I kept reading and read to the end, and that is, at the end of the story, Jesus says, Lazarus, come forth. Lazarus, come forth. And Lazarus does, out of death and out of darkness into light and into life. And every single day in our lives, we are all blessed to hear that call from our God. Our God calls us forth to come forward out of darkness and out of death into lightness and into life, and asks us to bring our gifts with us, to love each other, and to mix our gifts with the gifts of others in order to make our world more like the kingdom, to make it more like it should be. And so when I think about the work that ahead that we have together, I think about our faith traditions and the power that is in those faith traditions. I also think about our democratic traditions and the power that lies there, and the power that we have as engaged citizens to use the democratic process, inspired by our faith traditions and inspired by our democratic traditions, to make our world more just and more equal for all. And so what I hope will come out of today is an effort to do just that, and to lay out some ways that we can act together concretely to build our power and to continue to make progress on the issues that are important to all of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Imam Afsar Uddin and Nick Brunick, for your reflections. Those were wonderful. And perhaps these will inspire you, all of you here gathered today, as we are going to now go into our first round of individual meetings. The question to talk about with your randomly selected partner will be, why is it important to you to be part of this work? Why now? And what does this, how does your faith and values inform this? Or what does this have to do with your faith and your values? So I'm going to hand that over to our tech person.
Thank you so much. Hope everyone had an inspiring one-to-one, whether it was your first one or your 100th one. Those of us who've been, I was one of the founding co-chairs of DuPage United. So go back to 2001, and we've done quite a number of one-on-ones with that. And so hope yours was as meaningful as mine was. So at this time, I'd like to introduce Stefan Whitley. He's the organizer with Metro IAF One Wake, and who would like to share his reflections on power. Stefan, please take it away until 4:15.
Shukran. Can everyone hear me? Great. So my name is Stefan Whitley, and I'm an organizer with One Wake, which is a Metro IAF organization in North Carolina, in Wake County, North Carolina. So one thing I was just wondering is, can I get a thumbs up or a hands up, anything? I wanted to know how many people here have ever been through a training before, whether it was a 5-day, 3-day, 1-day training. So we have some people who have been to training, great. So one of the things, so I'm a newer organizer. I've been organizing now for 2.5 years. And so it's still fresh to me. And being in trainings, and I actually only got an opportunity to be in one training, unfortunately, due to COVID, and that was right before COVID really kicked off. But that first training for me, initially, it seemed kind of boring, right? And so one thing I definitely don't want to do is I don't want to bore anyone here today. So what I would do is I'll tell, a lot of stories and be more practical opposed to, using a lot of theory. And so what I would like to do here is I want to share my view of power prior to being an organizer and organizing, and how I view and see power now. Is that okay for everyone? Do I have consent for that? Great.
Absolutely.
I'm good with that.
So one thing I want to say, even though I said that it seemed boring to me to be in that training, these trainings I've learned are absolutely necessary. And actually, now that we're stuck doing virtual trainings, I yearn and long for the day that we come back into actually being able to meet in person. So that's just one thing I wanted to say before really getting started. So let me just start by telling you a story about when I was about 12 years old. I grew up in Newark, New Jersey, which is a city not much different than Chicago. Especially back then, they actually called it Brick City because there were so many projects in the city. There was really no grass, more so just brick sidewalks everywhere, poverty, and a lot of crime. And because of that, my mother pretty much sheltered me. She wouldn't really allow me at that point in time in life to leave from out of the front of the house or the side of the house. But there was one day when I was 12 years old that I got to go out and ride my bike with some guys from my neighborhood. And these were guys who were in the neighborhood a lot more and explored a lot more than me. And so I'm riding my bike with them, and we rode for a pretty good distance. We rode to a city outside our city called Hillside, New Jersey, which was a suburb, so to say. The grass was very green. It was totally different. Houses had manicured lawns. What really stuck out to us, I guess, as youth, was that the roads were paved really nicely. There wasn't any broken glass. And so we were riding our bikes, having a very good time, challenge each other to tricks. And out of nowhere, 2 police cars came and pulled up in front of us and blocked our path. The police officers then jumped out of the cars, 2 to each car, and demanded that we get off our bikes and put our hands on the hot police cars. We did that, and then they made us, after they searched us and seen we didn't have anything on us, they made us sit on the hot concrete. After the police radioed in to make sure the bikes weren't stolen, and to check and see if there was any complaints about a group of youths, Black youths that were causing a ruckus, they told us we can leave. But the officer said, before you leave, I want to say one thing to you. I don't ever want to see you in Hillside again. And so we got on our bikes happy to be able to go and be free. But everyone was really quiet on the way back, much different than the way we came. And so I broke the silence. Being a new guy who didn't know any better, so to say, I said to my friends, that wasn't right. They can't do that to us. And the oldest guy, I was 12 at the time, the oldest guy, all of us, his name was Talik. He was 15 years old. And he had been through this more times than he probably, would have liked to, I'm sure. And he said to me, man, shut up. We Black, that's just the way it is. But I could tell that he was frustrated and angry. So I did just what he said. I was quiet. But I kept saying to myself that on my way back, while on my way home, I said, I can't wait to get home because I'm going to share what happened with my mother. And I know that she will fix things because that's what my mother always does. She's the fixer. And so when I got home, I shared what went on with my mother. And to my surprise, my mother said to me, baby, they're right. And she sat me down and she talked to me and told me, that's just the way it is. And she, gave me the whole spiel about being Black in America and, police officers and what I need to do to stay safe. That was the first instance where I really had a impersonal interaction with police officers treating, me or other individuals in an unjust way, personally seeing and being a part of. But since then, I had countless incidents, including seeing my stepfather get shot actually that same year by the police officers as they kicked in our door. at about 3 a.m., about 15 feet away from me. I was involved in countless stops and frisks. Actually was arrested a couple of times for loitering because they said I couldn't stand around in my neighborhood. But I was also arrested as well for wandering because they said I couldn't walk around in my neighborhood, right? So I guess I just wasn't supposed to be there. And the list goes on. But the important takeaway from all this is I went through 46 years of my life frustrated because I didn't know what to do, how to make change, how to stop things from being the way that they were. But I wouldn't accept that. And so I was just, a very frustrated and sometimes angry individual. And this didn't change for me actually until I went to an IAF training, a 5-day training that took place in Jersey City, New Jersey. And as I said, it was kind of boring for me, but I believe it must have been the 3rd or 4th day, the segment came out where they was teaching about power. And when that segment came out, things just, I don't know, something about this whole organizing thing just clicked for me. It became very visceral, and I was just latching on to every word that the trainer had to say. And then we ended that training. The last day, they actually had an action. And then this action was against Mayor de Blasio of New York at the time, who had promised $500 million for affordable housing for senior citizens, but he didn't follow through on that. And prior to the action, they actually gave him a call and say, hey, Mayor, what happened with that $500 million? And he basically brushed them off saying, yeah, I don't really know what you're talking about. And so they put, and I was a part of that, 6,000 people in front of City Hall. And a bunch of elders bringing their luggage saying, hey, if you're not going to put affordable housing up for us, then we'll move in City Hall. And this was, to me, was just so amazing, right? It was multiracial, people of all ages. There was a great energy about it. And I was in the middle of that. For the first time in my life, I was actually in the middle of being a part of a group of people who are actually saying, we demand change and coming together collectively, not being separated by our races, ages, or anything of that nature. And what happened was about a week later, the mayor started, his office started calling, because EBC was the organization that led that. The mayor's office kept calling. Now they're chasing behind us, the organizing group, saying, hey, can we sit down and meet with you? Long story short, he put that $500 million back. He put it in the budget, and he worked on starting to get those homes built for those senior citizens. And that's what taught me what can happen actually when you come together collectively and build power. Now, a lot of people said they've been through training, so I'm guessing everyone has already heard, understands, what we mean when we talk about power. But for a brief refresher, to identify and define what power is or what we're talking about, what I'm talking about when I speak about power, I want to quote Dr. King, and we'll use that definition because it's pretty much the same definitions that we use as organizers in Metro IF. And Dr. King said, power properly understood is nothing but the ability to achieve purpose. It is the strength required to bring about social, political, and economic change. Now, as organizers, we understand that there's two forms of power. There's organized people as well as organized money. And there's, pardon me, and there's also two types of power, as the stories I just told illustrated. The first story was about officers misusing their power. And so we call that dominant power, which is power over. So you take, grown police officers with this power to arrest and sometimes even kill, bullying a group of 12-year-olds. That's dominant power, power over. But we also have another form of power. That second story I told about people coming together collectively, 6,000 people, that's what we like to call relational power, meaning power with people coming together collectively to build power. Now, relational power and dominant power are very different. And to just give you, I would like to speak about it, but I want to give you a visual on it. So Shaquille, can you pull up on the screen the document I sent over to you?
Karen, would you please? Thank you.
Yes, hang on. Let's see.
No problem.
Can you see it?
No. Okay, there we go. Okay, so as I was saying, they are very different. So dominant power, it requires domination, while relational power, it requires interaction. And dominant power's purpose is to maintain the status quo, while relational power purpose is to make change. Dominant power also has the nature is for hoarding, whereas relational power is about being expansive. Did it leave everyone else's screen? Because I no longer see it.
Yeah, I no longer see it either.
Yeah, it's left mine as well.
I don't know. I'm sorry. I don't know what happened there.
Washed. Try Command Z. Try to undo it. Oh, there we are. Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
So, and the way in which dominant power is exercised is this one way, right? It's very unilateral, whereas relational power is mutual, as we show, as I spoke about with the people, 6,000 people coming together collectively to make change. And what dominant power usually yields is oppression and violence, whereas relational power yields or can lead to new realities. Now, when you bring all of these things together, when you talk about utilizing domination for the maintaining the status quo and hoarding of that power in a one-way type of situation, that is what power over is, where the opposite, interacting collectively, being expansive to make change and being mutual with that power to lead to new realities. That's what power with is and the purpose of it. Thank you. If anyone wanted to take a picture of that real quick, I would say hurry up and do so with your phone. I don't know. Other than that, Shaquille, y'all can take it down now.
I think I took a picture anyway.
Okay, no problem. Give it a
Thank
moment.
you. I can put it in that as a separate email to everybody too. I can
Great.
send that out.
Thank
So
you
one thing I spoke about is how different relational power is different from dominant power, but let's speak about how relational power is built. The best way in which I've learned thus far, the work that's needed and required to build relational power is to go about having listening to people, having one-on-one meetings or house meetings, just to hear from people first, learn, build relationships, but also hear from people and find out what is their issue, what is the problem that's bothering them, what's keeping them up at night. Because one thing you don't want to do oftentimes is you pick a problem or something you believe is a problem, but you don't have enough people who are interested in making change about it. So once you identify that issue or that problem, then you go about having one-on-ones, searching for leaders, and to see if people want to do something about it. Door knocking, is very important. Canvassing when you're trying to build this type of power, and having these house meetings and listening sessions to strategize about building such power. Let me share an experience for you when I was a part of not taking all of those steps to try to build relational power, but yet expecting change. About a little over a year ago, our organization came into a problem that a few people were complaining about, because the biggest developer in North Carolina was about to build a space that was pretty much going to be the largest luxury complex entertainment space in North Carolina. And so we went around trying to, hear from people, make sure that this was something they had a problem with. And then we went to elected officials and asked them would they work with us to either stop this project or have Mr. Kane, the developer, succeed to certain of some of our demands. And pretty much we ran into many roadblocks and felt that we didn't get much done there. Instead, actually, what it seemed like in the end was that the elected officials were pretty much on his side, and they were going to be giving him $400 million and to help him build his projects. And they actually told us that we should leave this alone because this is the best thing that could actually come out of this space. So that if it wasn't him, the next group of people or the next developer could be way worse. But there's no shortcuts when it comes to organizing. You know, it requires a lot of dedication and self-sacrifice. As we watched over in the past with SNCC, with Dr. King, there's just no shortcuts. There's no way around doing the work. Let me share with you another example of when we went through all those steps I just explained and the outcome. During that same process, when we went around asking people, did they have a problem with the John Kane project? We also asked them, is there anything else that bothers you or keeps you up at night? And almost every person spoke about property taxes, because in the community of Raleigh, North Carolina right now, which they're saying is the #2 best place to live, property taxes have doubled and tripled in the last few years for folks. And so I went back and just said, hey, that was something I identified that people had a problem with. So we went back and started asking more people, having one-on-one meetings with people, also finding leaders. And then some of those leaders started working to bring together what we like to call house meetings, where we got together in group spaces, whether it was 10 people or 30 or 40 people, and heard from folks, heard them come together collectively, and find out if they wanted to do something about it. And one of the things that happened through having these meetings over and over, and we had also knocked on over 600 doors, but an elected official actually called me one day and he said, hey, I heard you guys had a meeting last night and I wasn't invited. And I said, no, you weren't. We're just listening to the people, trying to find out how they're being affected by these property tax issues. He said, oh, well, if anytime you guys want me to, I'll come and I'll speak. And I said, okay, thank you. When the time comes, we'll reach out to you to have a conversation with you. Long story short, we had started gaining some recognition and understanding that we were bringing people together, which is scary to a lot of politicians. And so the next thing we started having these meetings with elected officials, and we let them know that we were going to have an action, which we did have in October, and we would like to for them to be invited. And we ahead of time shared with them what our proposals were going to be. And when they showed up to a sea of people. We had about 250 homeowners there, as well as over 350 more on Facebook Live. And through that building of that power, people come together collectively. We watch elected officials who at once nudged us off with the developer project get on stage and say, absolutely, we will work with you. Some of them, we didn't get a chance to ask the question. They just got up and said, absolutely, we'll work with you. And since then, what I've noticed and what we've noticed is we've, as a new organization, because that's one thing I didn't share, is that One Wake is very new, we now have great recognition from them. So elected officials are mentioning us a lot. They're recommending that other people talk to us when there's issues going on in the county. And they're very eager to respond to our calls and emails. And also, since that action, the same project that we were complaining about with the developer, now it seems that this local officials are pulling out and saying that they will not support it and give that $400 million. That's what happens. That's what to be gained when you do the work of coming together taking the time out your busy schedule to build power. The last thing I would like to share, or I guess ask, the question I would like to ask from everyone, by a show of hands, you can use the chat, thumbs up, whatever. How many people here have ever took the time to learn or start learning another language? Whether it was high school, wherever, a good deal of us, right? Great. Now, one thing I've learned, I remember when I was learning Spanish at one point, I also remember I took about 4 different Arabic grammar classes, right? And I was getting pretty, good and proficient at both the more work I put into it. But the moment that I stopped doing those things and thought that I would just retain those skills, right? And a couple of years went by, I found myself not remembering a lot of it. And that's just like what we do this work here as organizers and this work we're doing. If we do not continue to build this power, just like a language, if we don't continue to learn it and become more proficient in it, then it's going to start to decline. That's the same thing with building power. If you don't continue to work to build more power, you will start to lose power. There's no such thing as remaining status quo with power if you're not doing the work. So either you're building it or you're losing it. The last thing I would like to say is this is how we make change consistently, by doing the work, taking that time out your busy schedule. And one other thing I was thinking about, and it was brought to my attention, was if we don't keep the concept of power at the center of what we do, we will lose our way in this work. And that's something that we don't want to do, whether it's because you need change to be made or the people that we care about. One of the things I was sharing in the individual last meeting we just had, well, the last one-on-one we just had, was in my faith, the prophet says, when he talks about faith, he says, if you see a wrong, to change it with your hand. And if you can't change it with your hand, then hate it in your heart. And if you can't hate it in your heart, then, pardon me, if you change it with your hands. If you can't change it with your hands, then change it with your tongue. And if you can't change it with your tongue, then hate it in your heart. But then he says that is the weakest of faith, to hate it in your heart and not do anything. So it is incumbent upon us, I believe, as people of faith, to do something, to work, to make change. With that, I pass it on to, I guess, Amy, you could tell us what we're doing next.
Thank you, Stefan, for that really moving reflection about your experience, about your childhood experiences, and then breaking it down about what it means to have power. That was, I have been to the 10-day training when I first started back in 2001, I think it was 2001 or 2002. Debbie knows, I think we travel the same journey. And still, your matrix was very, very helpful. So thank you so much.
Welcome back from the break, everyone. We are going to be moving on to reactions and questions. So thank you, Stefan, for your powerful story and reflections on power and the difference between dominating power and relational power. We have about 5 minutes. Does anybody have a reaction or question and would like to raise your hand? If so, use your raise hand function in the participants tab, please. And I'll be happy to call on you. Otherwise, I will reach out to some people by name. Clara Hughes, go ahead and unmute and ask your question.
Hi, it's not really, well, it is a question, I guess. Stefan, you read a quote from Martin Luther King about power properly understood is the means to, and you said some really great things. It sounded like it was a mean to make change for the purpose of achieving good, but either can you put that quote in the chat or or tell me where it came from, and I can look it up because I loved it and I'd like to kind of keep that mindset going. And I also wanted to thank you for all of the way you practically described power. And one more thing, just everybody else that spoke too. There's one thing, the resonating theme is, I know, is co-creation, but it's the fact that as people of faith, just wanting to do good, it has to be action, not just heart. It has to be action too. So that's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you, Clara. All right, was there anyone else who would like to respond? We have a couple of minutes left. All right. Well, we don't want to waste those couple of minutes, folks. So I may call on some folks here who don't have their hand raised. A name that was suggested to me was Kathy Pearson.
Well, it's hard not to have a reaction. It's almost hard to, I'm still thinking about the whole day and how important it is and how I've been so moved by it all. I just want to thank all of the people who have talked about, have shared themselves to talk to the whole group. And I really am humbled. So that's what I have to say.
Thank you, Kathy. Another name that was suggested by our organizer was Michelle Huang. Michelle, would you like to give a reaction?
I appreciate Stefan's sharing of his story, because it is a very tangible example of what we can do collectively, and it gives hope to this community that we, in Geneva, that we can also rally together and be a force for change.
Thank you, Michelle. You all are so succinct. We have time for one more person if they'd like to be really succinct. And Alec Harris was a name that came up. If Alec is here, maybe Alec.
Sorry, it just took me a second to unmute.
No problem.
Just again, amazing stories. The prompt is just really to respond to Stefan and his comments and what he shared. Is that correct?
Yes.
Really, really incredible. I can't even imagine, especially his experiences as a child, the impact that would have on someone growing up, and hearing stories along, that he shared. It really encourages me to redouble my efforts to make the world a better place and to prevent things like that from happening. And so thank you, Stefan, for the inspiring stories born out of that hardship that you faced.
Thank you, Alec. And I would encourage you, I guess, if you wanted to, we could use this chat feature to include your responses and reactions, but we do need to move along, keeping in mind our agenda here. So I see some people with hands raised, and I'm sorry, we're not going to get to you right now. Tabassum, are you here or have you stepped out for a moment?
No, I'm here. I'm back.
Okay, I'm handing it over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Stacy. So the next portion is the second round of one-to-one meetings. And there it's for 10 minutes. And if we could share a moment when our understanding of power changed. So that's our one-to-one meeting. And we'll be going into breakout rooms shortly.
We are going to keep things moving along here, and we are now at the part of our agenda talking about strategy, and the first person I have listed is Richard Townsell. So Richard, I'm going to hand things over to you.
Great. Good evening, everybody. My name is Richard Townsell. I'm the Executive Director of the Lawndale Christian Development Corporation on the west side of the city of Chicago and a dues-paying member of United Power. I was part of the founding convention of the United Power back in 1997. And then when I left the organization in 2006, we stopped being a member of United Power. And then when I came back, my goal was to get us back as members of United Power as soon as I could. Today, we're going to spend time talking about how do we co-create the kind of world that we want to be. And we're going to spend some time talking about, how organizing is going to help us get there. So here's how I, with other leaders, we have 9 member institutions in North Lawndale. And beyond that, the whole of United Power, we're thinking about how do we want to work through, build our power, build our organizations. And so we want to work with our members to turn out a minimum of 1,500 people to an action on July 17th. In September 2020, the time we last organized a large-scale in-person action, we organized 1,251 people to meet with Mayor Lightfoot. At the time, we had 6 member institutions, a small team of leaders in North Lawndale, and just under 30 institutional members of United Power for Action and Justice. Together, and with participation from our fellow IAF affiliates, I know some of you all were there, we turned out 1,251 people. Today, we have 9 member institutions in North Lawndale and 35 member institutions as part of United Power for Action and Justice. We have organized the money and the power to kick off the Reclaiming campaign. And we've kept up with the work to advance the gun safety consortium and mental health and criminal justice reform. So first, I'm going to propose that United Power's collective leadership team meet on February 9th, 2022, and assess how many people we could turn out in July. And that we report this quota back to our fellow affiliates of Illinois IAF. Second, I'm going to spend some time talking about local action with and through our members. In North Lawndale, public safety is a major self-interest of mine and other leaders of United Power and the North Lawndale Homeowners Association in North Lawndale. At our Homeowners Association last week, we approved a strategy to engage the local police deputy Chief Wines is all public officials to assert our local power to try to co-create a safer neighborhood. I want to work with other leaders in North Lawndale to lead actions to make this happen. So one thing that we might do, there are a lot of buildings where there's a lot of interesting activity, I'm going to say, going on. And we would like to, most of those buildings are owned by people that don't live in the neighborhood. One thing that we're proposing is we go visit those landlords in their neighborhoods and run a little action on them so they can get to see the chaos that we have to live in. We want to bring some of that chaos to them. We also want to do some internal action work. When we think about this 1,500 person action that we want to do, this doesn't happen magically. It doesn't happen through emails, doesn't happen through social media. Those things could be helpful, but we're going to do the old fashioned taking quotas. What's the name of the person that you're going to get? So when we talk about doing action, whether it's a small action or larger action, we want people to actually take quotas and by name say who are they going to get to come to the action. You see a lot of this now as people are starting to pass out petitions, right, for elected office. They're giving you their petitions and they want you to put names. Well, we want to do that for the common good. We want to figure out who are the people that we're going to deliver to an action that they can learn and that we can build our organization ultimately by having people not just theoretically do this, but how do we move away from theory to action so we can build this organization and build some power so that, the best question in organizing is what's next, right? When we win this, then what? If we have a 2,500 person action I'd love to be able to get to the point where we have a 6,000 person action like our brothers and sisters in East Brooklyn. And so we want to get to that point. So in North Lawndale, when it comes to July, we want to deliver 250 people from our institutions to this 1,500 person action. And we're going to go after potential member institutions, private sector, engaged presidents of major financial institutions like JP Morgan Chase or BMO Harris or Wintrust, Northern Trust, Wells Fargo, public officials such as Mayor Lightfoot, Senator Harmon, Speaker Welch, and others. So when we meet with the governor, they get to see our power, both because of our folks in our institutions, as well as our ability to deliver to other folks as well. So now I'm interested to hear from other counties and how you're thinking about your power. And so I'm going to call on Father Jean Beniste from Lake County United, and then Debbie folks from DePage United to hear about how you all are thinking about your power. Thank you.
So I am Jean Beniste. I am a priest in a community in the county called Waukegan, and I am an Episcopal priest. I'm the rector of Christ Church. So today we're talking about power. One of the things I said, as base community, we have a power. Power cannot giving to us. We give power to politicians. Because since we give power to politicians, we can take it at any time. But in the base community, they cannot take power from us. But the strategy that we have to apply, it is taking all opportunity that we got in our hand first to celebrate. When we celebrate, it gives us opportunity to build a relationship with one another. For example, we are today here to celebrate this donation that we have, the land to build that affordable housing for people and the frontline worker. And how we do that and start building relationship with those people. When you go to supermarket and those people that working day by day, if they lose their job, today on 30, they got only 30 days to become homeless, and to let them know that we got the power to stand up and to build together. When you bring people as a community, you let them know their strength, you work together to them and to recognize that power they got. And when we come together and working, we can come to radical change in the community. One of the example I got, it was during the pandemic. We got all those people that working in medical field and Erie Hospital, a clinic center. We organized that vaccination action. It is an opportunity for me to meet with those people, that especially that working day by day, that speaking a different language, and that serving the community. But as I told you early, if they lose their job today, they got 30 days to become homeless because the system do not sustain anything for them. As we take those issues, like the building, affordable housing, it is an issue that we bring people together. It is not only we are going to build housing for people, it is create relationship in different aspects in the community, as you can see on the map. It is not only we just build the apartment and we leave the people. It is reach out and building that relationship with people in different aspects. They can be a construction worker, people that work in restaurant, people that work at school, school bus driver, church, and all different agencies. And when you finish to do that, it is not something that just you finish to do it and you let the people. It is a way you open a new journey, you work with people, and we strengthen our base, and we can continue this mobilization. What it is different and outreach. You reach out to people to resolve an issue, you leave them. But this, it is not reaching out to them, but you open a new adventure, you build people up, and you make them recognize their ability to create and to build together and to work together. As we are working deeper in this, for us today, I think it is an opportunity to celebrate. We got one element in our hand to bring the power on. The last thing I'm going to say, power doesn't come from up, power comes from in the base community. As we build together, we have strength, we got ability to create and to open new adventure with the community. And thank you.
Hi, I'm Debbie Fulks. I've got a little bit different story about how over the course of, I don't know, I guess 15 to 18 years, we've used organizing to build sort of an anchor institution in Glen Ellen. In the early days after the founding of DuPage United, several leaders at Faith spent quite a bit of time listening, training, and organizing inside our church, while also getting to know leaders among the other member institutions. And as the number of trained leaders grew at Faith, we established even more links to other DuPage United members, sometimes through shared service, like the time we worked with the Islamic Foundation of Villa Park to fill a trailer full of donations for Hurricane Katrina relief. And because we knew and trusted one another, DuPage United institutions were able to organize very quickly to respond to county cuts when they cut the funds that supported a lot of nonprofits in DuPage. That work also led to solid relationships with the nonprofits in DuPage because they saw us as pivotal in eventually getting those funds restored. In the middle of the county budget fight, a DuPage United leader from the Muslim Society Incorporated came to Faith because our institutions both had kids at a school where a really important after-school program was being threatened by those county cuts. That program was targeted to the children of refugee families that lived in an apartment complex near Faith Lutheran. Nazish personally knocked on doors at that apartment complex and invited recent immigrants over to Faith for a completely impromptu meeting. She thought the after-school program was going to be the main issue, but after listening to them, we learned a much bigger issue was the lack of multi-level English classes for the adults. So this meeting and others that followed led to the formation of an English tutoring program at Faith, with the tutors coming from 5 DuPage United institutions and also using guidance from yet another DuPage United member who had a similar program already in place. As a result of that program, other local churches eventually got involved creating sewing lessons for the refugee women in a house that we owned right next to the church. And then at the request of the ladies, we let them dig up the backyard and have a garden that supplied their families and the Glen Ellen food pantry. All of this was building like a web of relationships centered at Faith. where some would see a bunch of programs set up to serve people, DuPage United leaders at Faith saw them as actions taken with people in the community who had expressed a need and wanted to do something about it. The programs became an opportunity to relate, build trust, act, and grow power together. So when our local community college began to eliminate English classes, Faith was the first to know because our English students came to us for help. Our tutors and their institutions from across the county, also our nonprofit allies, the sewing partners, and even elected officials with whom we had established relationships, all came together in a very short time to pressure the college to reverse their decision. Leaders at Faith served as kind of a clearinghouse, organizing speakers for the trustee meetings, gathering signatures, doing op-eds. You know, we were eventually successful, but without the power of far-flung, diverse groups acting together, we would have been powerless. Now we're in the middle of a campaign to build an affordable, supportive housing development in Glen Ellen near my church. We're again relying on our member institutions in and near Glen Ellen and the nonprofits that already know us, kind of the power core. But the housing team also has a list of other nonprofits and churches and other institutions that we want to relate to around this project. We'll use the project as a concrete way to connect more deeply in our community with the intention of establishing long-term relationships. So we're using the relational power we've already developed over all these years to expand that power locally.
Thank you, Debbie.
Oh, good. Awesome.
Yes, thank you so much. Now we will again move to breakout session for small group discussion. And the question, the prompt there is, what way might you focus your time to build your organization? And what actions or relationships might you initiate to do that? And we have about 10 minutes for that discussion as soon as we are sent out to breakout sessions.
Well, everybody hang on. We are in the final phase of our agenda, wrapping up. I'm Stacy Walker, one of your fearless co-leaders of this, or co-chairs of this meeting. And now we want to turn to talking about our action steps. So some of these have been mentioned along the way. I know I heard Richard Townsend mention talking about going back to your local affiliates in the month of February to discuss strategy and plan of action. That's key. So I hope you take the things that have inspired you today at this retreat and go back to your local affiliates being your local IAF affiliate, and meet together with the leaders there to discuss strategy and plans of action. The second step would be leadership training. This is for seasoned and new leaders. There is a handout, perhaps. Is that going into the chat, Shaquille, or someone? Don't know. But there will also be a writing workshop available this spring. Okay, I'm gonna keep rolling along here, and if it's not gonna show up in the chat, it's gonna show up in an email coming to you soon. So keep your eyes peeled for training, whether perhaps you haven't had the training yet, perhaps it's been a few years, perhaps you could just use a little bit of inspiration to get you pumped up again here during this coming out of the COVID slump. Ah, there it is. Okay, thank you, Shaquille. So it looks like we have, ooh, that is little. Illinois Metro IF, thank you, leadership training coming up Ah, this is lovely. There'll be experienced leaders sessions, as you can see there, as well as new leaders sessions. Wonderful. And then the writing workshop, is that on there as well, Shaquille? Maybe scroll down a little bit. Oops, nope, that's something else. Oh, here we go. All right, persuasive writing. Ooh, that's interesting. Workshop for community leaders and organizers. So that's something to think of. And oh, hey, I see a couple of names there by a couple of great leaders and organizers, Greg Pierce and Adrian McCulley. So you probably don't want to miss that if that's something you can work into your schedule. So some little, or not little, some significant trainings there. And then the third step in our list of next steps is a regional meeting in March, again, with all of our 4 affiliates again, for a further plan of action with the governor, with Governor Pritzker. And I believe that wraps up our next steps. Blossom, are you here?
Okay. Yes, I
There
am.
you are. Now you're next to
Yes.
me. Hello.
Hello, hello. We keep, I think they like to, Zoom likes to keep us guessing. That's why we jump around every once in a while. So we are at our evaluation stage of the retreat. And for this, just reflecting on today's event. What is one thing that is sticking with you the most? We can spend a few minutes on this. Would love to hear if you want to just raise your hand or just drop it in chat, whatever.
It was great to meet people from across the metro area that are working on similar issues and having them share their personal stories. So thank you to everybody for doing that.
Wonderful, thank you. Emily.
Hi, Emily Tyson, DuPage United. Because of life, I haven't been that involved in specific initiatives lately, and being able to participate in action like this is super motivating. I'm really excited to go back to my home institution, and I feel energized by seeing all of you here tonight. And thank you for everyone who contributed.
Thank you for that. How about Laura?
This evening or afternoon rather, reinforced for me how important it is to expand the network and to build relationships within my church, within my community, within Fox River Valley Initiative. So I appreciate that.
Okay, thank you, Laura. Any other reflections? We had over 100 attendees at this retreat, which is quite impressive for a Sunday afternoon when there are playoffs.
Yeah.
And I was almost, I was
losing.
actually planning on apologizing ahead of time that even though my family's, on the other end of the house, I could hear them screaming and I had to quickly mute. So given that that was all going on, we had over 100 attendees, which is amazing. I see Larry, my old friend Larry.
Thanks to Blossom. What strikes me the most is because we're working on similar issues, there is such a tremendous opportunity while we talk about the governor and what we might want to accomplish in a large Metro IAF meeting. The issues are similar, and there's a lot of relationship power in how the organizations might work together to solve an issue. There's power in the 4 of us, if you will, than just the 1 of us. And so I think looking for more opportunities where we can all work together to solve a particular or take a particular action would be incredibly beneficial.
Thank you, Larry. Anyone else? Would love to hear about your reflections, whether you're a seasoned veteran or this is your new, this is the first meeting. Yes, Imelda?
I just want to go back to the title of today.
we are really co-creators of a shared world. And thank you, because every person I talk to, their stories really connected me to why I do this. And I think if we realize the power in this room, who doesn't want to talk to us? You know, like what's going on with the governor? So let's get to work because we are really co-creators of a shared world.
Yes, absolutely. Definitely co-creators. I mean, we're shoulder to shoulder in this organization. And is it Clark?
Yes, I've been at this for quite a while, not as long as some people, but I'm struck by how Stefan made clear that we make the power creates the potential for change, and that power only improves.
Absolutely. Thank you. And it's the power to change that's so important. Anna, please. We can't hear you.
Oh, you're still
Anna,
muted.
we still can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. So I was saying that thank you very much for the invitation. I'm a parent for TRP and for the Scholarship Advocacy Network. And it's been very nice to see all you leaders talking about your experiences and how you
Lost you again, Anna.
You're muted again.
Oh my God, this microphone. I'm sorry. So,
No.
well, I just wanted to say that thank you very much for the invitation. And I really enjoyed all the comments and all the stories that you have to share with us. And I think that it feels like more encouraging listening to you and listening that after all the work that you put on something, you finally have what you were looking for. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that, Anna. Tracy?
Hi, yes, I am just saying thank you so much. It's so funny how we all have different passions, but we can relate to each person's story and their passion behind their movement. And just to know how we can all collectively come together to bridge and support each other in this network, you know, to open the door and include more people, because everyone has been touched by a story they can relate to, a cause or an effect, how it will affect our children, our families, our environment, and our communities. And I love that everything was faith-based, as everyone was able to openly express themselves. Everything was an inclusion, and just to see the ideas of how we can change the world and our environment. I'm looking forward to working with you. Thank you so very much for this opportunity.
Thank you, Tracy. I think this is, like Anna said, listening is one of the joys of being part of this group. I think one of the few times that listening is even more enjoyable than speaking. So love that.
Yes.
Anyone else? Please share your reflections. We've been together now for almost 3 hours. I'm sure you have something to share. Or just drop it in
Okay,
the
this
chat.
is Clara, and because I don't know how to raise my hand really well, so I'm just going to jump in there. This has really been valuable time, and I think I have to echo the concept of sharing our stories and sharing our passion really helps grow our power, our empowerment individually and build our passion collectively, because other people are just helping you out. Anytime we all want to help somebody, generally speaking, people want to help people. And anytime that we can connect on a very personal level with an experience, I think just grows that heart muscle and that action muscle to do good and be those co-creators of for change in this world for a more just society. Thank you.
Thank you, Clara. Thank you, Clara. Carrie.
So everything that everybody said, for me, it was saying like information that we know, we have had knowledge of, but hearing it in the stories by Stefan, and then what Debbie had shared about how they had built their community just one step at a time and relationally, and then how powerful that was to, like, I've known Debbie and I've never heard that story. So today, just seeing like a different perspective, a different take on, you know, the words that we've, you know, about leadership and relational, and seeing it in action has been really helpful and motivating.
Thank you, Carrie. Clark, did you want to add something?
Yes, for doing one-on-ones that I teach people that what a one-on-one is in detail, but the one thing that has always struck me is that the main thrust of a one-on-one is to listen, like we said, and it's clear to me that listening gives you a much better opportunity of learning yourself, educating yourself, and have a much more better chance of learning when listening than you do in talking.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Listening more than talking, for sure. Can I, okay, I'm just gonna, we have a couple of minutes left. So I'm
David
just gonna,
Mata. Okay.
We have 1 minute for David, and then we need to wrap up to be on schedule.
Hello, everyone. Name's David. I'm part of the TRP. I was invited today to this leadership retreat, and what I wanted was to learn from other leaders, and I did just that. You guys are amazing. Your stories are really touching and inspirational. I'm sure this is something I want to do a lot more often to make change. I might be a little young for it. I'm inexperienced, but I'm willing to learn. So thank you, everyone.
thank you so much. Now, if we can, actually, I'm going to just one more person, Deborah Moore.
Yes, hello.
Please go ahead, your reflection.
Well, I would say I really enjoyed the time. This is my very first time, and my organization, Neighborhood Housing Services, joined UPA this month. So we're really, really new. So really, thank you. Thanks for all the applause. And my president, Anthony Simpkins, is also on the call. And so we're just trying to understand more about how we get involved. And I was telling one of the small groups, I have a leadership development training this spring, and I'm really, really trying to figure out how I use that to really get more people for the actions and what actions those are for NHS. Thank you so much for the invite. I enjoyed it.
Okay. Thank you so much, Deborah. Thank you so much. And I'm going to pick on one more person before we go to the next session, is Pastor Amity. Can you please tell us your reflections?
Also, as a new individual, a new organization, to United Power and Metro IAF. It's been great just to learn and be inspired. I really appreciated the analysis of power, and that has given me a lot to think on, and Martin Luther King Jr.'s quote as well. And so, yeah, wanting to, use that that lens, put those lenses on both in my work in the congregation as well as, life out in the world. And I'm eager to learn more and participate in new member training with other members of my congregation, but just really inspired. This has been great. Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor Amity. So before I pass it to Stacy to close, I just want to say it was such a privilege to serve as one of your co-chairs and listening to so many of you veterans and new members. It was such a pleasure. It was my honor. So pass it to Stacy to close.
Thank you, Tabassum. So in closing, I just wanted to say thank you for everyone for your time and your service and your enthusiasm and taking the time to build these relationships, because relational power is built one relationship, one conversation at a time. And with that, I'll just let that be our charge and our prayer going forward, is to reach out there and have a conversation with somebody and make it a good one-on-one. The planning team, we're going to ask that you stay for evaluation, but others, once we adjourn, thank you again, and you are free to go.
Welcome, everyone. I presume you are here intentionally to stay for our evaluation. So welcome. My name's Amy Toch. I'm the lead organizer for United Power, and I'm going to lead us in our evaluation here, a brief evaluation. So we'll try to do this in about 15, 20 minutes if we need it. Sound good? Everybody with me? All right. So, and for this too, you're welcome, unless you've got like some football cheering in the background. I think maybe the game's over. You're welcome to come off mute for this section so we can just have an open conversation. I just want to start out first by getting your reactions and just hearing what from today is now almost 3 hours on Zoom. What was good? What do we want to lift up? What stood out to you? And what did you think worked?
Good introduction to organizing, concept of power. There was a lot of new people on here, so I think it was a good introduction.
Could I just ask everybody to introduce themselves when they start to, just because we won't have time to know who everybody is. Sorry, Bruce, to interrupt.
Sure. No, that's good. Bruce, Resurrection Project, Back of the Yards. I felt like it was a good introduction to the IAF power concept of organizing. A lot of new people on here, and I think they were excited by what they saw and heard.
Good, thanks. Just jump in. if you
I
got
think a
something.
big shout out too to everybody who had a hand on screen. Tabassum, you were fantastic. I'll reach out to Stacy. She is my pastor, so I'll tell her face to face. The technical support was outstanding.
Yes.
Stefan, excellent story. Everybody, I probably missed a few people, but you made people feel comfortable. You had excitement and just a genuine enthusiasm coming through the screen. I could feel it.
Yeah, I was saying
Let's
I'd
give
have
a-
to. Oh, I'm saying I have to agree on that. Even in the breakout rooms, it was really lively. People were excited to talk. People were excited to share their stories, and I felt like that really brought us a long way with that. They were very excited to speak and to meet other people from different areas that they haven't met before.
I thought the combination of presentation and breakouts and one-on-ones, it really came together well.
Yeah.
So
I see lots of nodding heads. So why don't we stay on that for a second? How did that work? Just the breakout rooms going back from that and then coming back, Yvonne?
I thought it went very, very well. I have to admit before I said 3 hours, how is this going to work? Is everybody going to be engaged? The stories were wonderful. The frame was on the point, what we needed to do. The last breakout though could have been longer because people wanted to talk a little bit more, but we didn't have enough time. So I think it all went very, very, very well. I was very excited.
Good.
Yeah.
The prompting
Yes, awesome.
questions were really helpful for the one-on-ones since those were so short to get into meaningful discussion quickly.
No, I absolutely second Yvonne that first of all the agenda now was just so substantive. It flowed really well. I mean, we had so many different pieces to it. We had a teaching training element. We had a getting to know you in a one-on-one, then a small group. I mean, we had everything there, and it didn't feel regimented. It really felt like it flowed really well, and each of the speakers were just spot on. Stefan, I mean, you were just incredible. It's just.
Let's give a round of applause to Stefan for agreeing to join us today.
Yes, it was just, it wasn't just it wasn't just you relaying a story. It was just your reflection of it and keeping it real. And we could still, I felt like I was there with you. And I have been in other gatherings where people have shared stories, and this is and the rest of us are like, wow, I've read about this, I thought this was true, but now I feel like I was there. So you had that impact. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
I want to get other reactions to, let's stay on Stefan's piece in particular. Any other reactions people would like to share to his piece?
Sure, this is Richard Townsell. I think that he modeled and taught the difference between a relational organizing style and an issue-based organizing style very, very well. And having, kind of like we won when this one happened and we didn't win when this one happened. I thought that was taught masterfully. I appreciated that. Thanks so much.
I'm gonna go next. I've had certain similar experiences with police and experiencing that type of power, and it really connected to me because I was even on a one-on-one with Ed, and I said to him, I don't know if I've ever had power before. I had power taken from me, but now with this opportunity and with my career, the power is coming back to me, and I can start seeing, the benefits of power from the individuals to the corporations to the future. And so that really resonated with me too, because we have a similar type of upbringing, but we're still learning what that power is and how we want to utilize power within ourselves. If that makes any sense, I'm sorry.
I was going to say, Stefan, you can tell that he's veteran. He knew how would it flow from topic to topic within the same. I was amazed by that. So I'm impressed, and you have a fan in me for sure. The way you spoke. So I'm just very impressed.
Diane, were you going to add something?
No, I was just agreeing with everybody, and I got to do a one-on-one. I got to do a one-on-one with him, so I had my moments. And now I'm trying to get Raleigh involved in the Gun Safety Consortium. I'm always on agenda.
That's not a one-on-one meeting. That's a
sorry, but it was great. I got an opportunity to talk to him, and I really appreciated it and appreciated your participation for sure.
Yeah. Stefan, how did you feel? Any reaction you have for us, or just being part of the day?
I mean, I thought it was, again, the tech was very well. It was 3 hours, but I can't say that it really seemed like 3 hours. I wasn't super bored. I've been on some 2-hour Zooms where I'm like, this is crazy, right? And I think that's sometimes what we have to understand. I always tell people, like I tell my people here, I say, man, less is more sometimes, right? But I will say that the call to action, it really like had me, you know, like it was moving some things in me. Like I want to come to Chicago. I want to be a part of that 1500. You know what I mean? I already feel like we was robbed due to COVID because I was really looking forward to coming to Chicago for the training last year. Yeah. And like, you know, just saying to myself, like, we got to get down there. But I can't wait. I can't wait to come out there and meet all of y'all in person.
Well, should we take a vote? Will we accept a delegation from North Carolina if we have our actions?
They have to bring their weather with them, though.
Yeah. I don't know. It's July. I don't know if we want that weather. We'll take it now.
Yeah, I mean now.
Yeah.
We gotta bring
I'll second
Yeah,
that.
but I think, so if we think back to the goals of the retreat today that we set out when we planned this, the 3 main things were, 1, to relate across the 4 counties, to learn, to come together and learn. And we had the 2 readings to do that, but the different pieces throughout the agenda from the frame to the reflection that Imam and Nick did, to Stefan's piece, to the strategy piece. That was all aimed at, I think, learning, and then also to have some shared strategy. So how did we do on that? Do we think we accomplished what we set out to and create that reaction? This was really an action to create a reaction around those things. How did we do?
I feel like some of the strongest pieces were those readings and of course the shared stories. The harder part was the shared strategy. I think there was just so much newness in the room. It was hard to imagine a strategy in a sense, just to reflect that a little bit.
Okay. How about for others? Any reactions there?
Amy, Amy, you and I were in that last meeting together, and I think we did have an opportunity in a way to really, I thought it was good to have this small group to talk about strategy because people could say where they were. And so there was a good sharing, and it was, like someone said, it could have been longer, probably didn't need to be, but that one worked, I think. Which is kind of a real, you know, you were in the same way, I don't know, in the same room. So I think people got a good sense of wanting to move forward and saying they could because they got information today.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the decision, right? We decided to do those groups across the 4 counties rather than caucus by organization. But instead, what we decided in the planning with this is to caucus afterwards, each individually within our individual organizations. So, you know, that was part of, maybe Bruce, to your point, maybe that's why it felt a little unfinished.
You're right.
You know, because partly it was to get us thinking about individually, how might we spend our time differently, but also collectively.
And one thing I did hear very strong was the desire for training and to know more. Yes. So I thought that was good.
Oh, yeah. That did seem to surface. Yeah, Yvonne?
I had new people in my small group after the strategy, so they needed more time to think about what to bring back to their group. So for me, we needed more time because several of the folks were new.
Okay. So let's stay on that for a second. Anything else that we think we could have done differently, or that we think could have been better?
So I had people in my first group who, I think Amy Lawless and I were the only ones who'd read the articles, which I know is always challenging, but just, I think had we given more time, but I know we were crunched on it all. And maybe resent them today or something to try to get, because they were good and they were short, and it would have been nice had, it would have enriched the conversation, I think, at least if we'd been able to all have read it.
In my first group, we actually, took a little section, or at least I had a specific section that, I brought up for the group, after the question too, because I did notice a lot of people did not read it, but I definitely found out this section was very important for what we were discussing. So I kind of read that, and people did seem to like that. The fact that I took a portion of it directly from the text, even though they didn't read it themselves.
Yeah. Yep.
Anything else you think we could have done better, differently? No? Knocked it out of the park? All right. Well, it looks like anybody who hasn't commented yet that would like to weigh in, people who haven't spoken yet that would like to make a comment towards the evaluation.
Yeah, I'd just like to say I think we had a really great turnout today for a NFL Sunday. And I think it was really well organized and put together, that we had different sections. I know sometimes on Zoom we've been very direct with the content, and then one of the complaints has been, well, we could have had more breakout rooms, but the good news is we had them. So I think that helped break up the content and engage, at least in small group settings and in one-to-one. So I thought that was good.
Great. Good. Amy Lawless, anything you would like to add to today's?
Well, like we always say, the actions and the reactions. So it'll be good to see how people respond after this. But it felt like hearing the comments from people commenting in small groups and in the whole group. It felt like the message was clear, that that our center is building power, not solving problems. Right? Our center, everything's centered in power. And that you don't have it unless you're building relationships. So it felt like that was clear throughout. I also just appreciated Imam Asfar connecting it to the Proverbs. I like hearing about this work from a different perspective when he talks about, the brother who digs the hole. Well, the person who digs the hole for the brother will fall into it. And those kind of, and power with plus character, those sort of things that come from text, and I just find that very helpful.
Yeah, his reflection, and then both he and Nick, they connected it both to the reading and to their faith, and I thought that seemed to really set the tone, and then just others drew on that at different points throughout. That really seemed to weave it together. All right, so I think we've all had a chance to weigh in. I just want to thank everybody for all the work that they